Cheers.
Cheers.
Once again, before we start, thank you, Akiko and Miho, for the sake. 他にぜひオーステンとアーサーに飲んでほしい日本酒があったら、ぜひ有料コメントで教えてください。必ずいただきます。We'll drink it for sure.
Especially if you could recommend like a seasonal sake.
Yeah, that would be good.
季節
限定.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep on going. I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
I forgot. I need to fix the camera.
Okay. Yeah, like a seasonal sake. Like what would you recommend for fall or winter's coming up?
Yeah,
also.
Right.
I'm very interested in that because I definitely like seasonal flavors.
Yeah, right. Dude, no, that sounds great. So yeah, 季節限定のやつがぜひぜひ飲ませていただきたいと思います。Thank you.
Yeah.
So what's today's topic?
Japanese people are robots.
Yes, that's the topic that I gave. That's the name that I said. I said Japanese people are robots. But what did you describe it as?
So I didn't want to be that blunt.
But you were thinking it. Then.
But so I want people watching to picture going to a konbini.
Yeah.
All right, here in Japan, a convenience store.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with me when walking into the konbini, if you stopped and imagined the possibilities of conversation that are going to happen inside the convenience stores, I guarantee you everyone knows exactly what they will say and what will be said before walking into the store.
Yeah, right. It's like a program. Yeah.
Right? And I think there's a lot of situations like that here in Japan where, take going into work and leaving work every day. Every single day. Ohayou gozaimasu. You finished work. Otsukaresama desu. Every single day. In that exact tone.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Right.
It's so automatic that it's like you don't even think about it. And I think that it's kind of a bummer in my opinion, because it kind of takes away like a little bit of creativity and spontaneity. Like
spontaneity.
What's
spontaneity, man?
Oh, whatever.
Can't you speak English?
Don't you pull out the English degree.
English teacher.
But it kind of takes away some of that like off the cuff kind of creative responses.
Like in the moment stuff. Yeah.
That kind of thing, right? And so that's what I was saying with a lot of conversations here end up sounding like robotic.
Yeah, well, like I mentioned in another conversation. So when my dad was over here and we were taking my son to kindergarten, Yochien, and we were going to the Yochien bus, right? We were waiting for the bus. And the woman said, "Ohayou gozaimasu," and calls everyone, and then she gets and once everyone's on the bus, she says agreeing, she closes the door and looks and like sits back down and stuff.
Yeah.
And my dad's first comment was like, yeah, people don't really talk to you. They just talk at you, don't they?
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
That makes a lot of sense because you don't make eye contact. You don't really put any emotions into your words most of the time, but it's just kimatta serifu. It's just exactly what you're supposed to say every time, like a robot on cue.
Yeah.
And that's how it is for so many things here. Like, especially like with Regitain, when I first got here, they would announce every single thing that they're doing. Whereas in the States, it's just like cash credit. Okay, here you go.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know how you personally feel about this, but I actually find it like hard to strike up conversation here.
Yeah, unless you're at a bar or something.
Yeah. Well, if you're in a setting where I think it's more accepted to have like a spontaneous conversation happen, but I think like in the work environment, right? Because there's such a procedure with conversation in a work environment or like going to a store, it's awkward to walk up to somebody and just try and strike a conversation and just be like, "Hey, how you doing today?"
Yeah.
And it's like that phrase right there, right? If you go to the US and if you walk into a supermarket, there's a pretty good chance someone will say, "How are you doing today?"
Yeah.
right? Like at like a register.
Yeah.
Like, someone's ringing up your stuff. Oh, how are you doing today?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that starts a conversation. Well, yeah, I'm doing fine. I'm buying some stuff. Then I'm going to go pick up my kids. And it's like you start talking about your life.
Yeah.
Where it's like you just don't see that here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That really hit me. So last time when I went to Boston in July this year, I went to a place to get coffee, right?
Yeah.
Like, me, I just get coffee, whatever. So I was going to get coffee, and the guy just starts to like strike up a conversation with me. The guy was giving me the coffee, and I ended up telling him, I'm living in Tokyo. He said, cool, Tokyo. They have a lot of good coffee shops over there.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go to Tokyo. And I'm just like, I felt kind of weird because it's like, this guy's having a conversation with me now. But even another thing that was like amazing to me, right?
Yeah.
Was, so we went back there again with my family, and I was waiting in line, and one of the people, not the guy at the register, but a person behind, like looked my way.
Yeah.
And not like he was staring at me, but we just locked eyes for a second. He just smiled at me, and then he started looking away, just like always. He was just like, "Oh, hi, how are you doing?" Like recognizing my presence. Whereas like that would never happen here. Like you make eye contact, you avert it immediately, or
it's like
you would never like smile. You just be like, yeah. But it's like you only have the designated responses, right?
Yeah. It's you know what, it kind of reminds me of like a video game.
Yeah.
Have you seen these like role-playing games where you have like the dialogue options, and it'll be like the clerk, and they'll be like, would you like to buy the apples? And your dialogue options are like yes, no, or what is the thing behind you?
Yeah, right.
It's like you have 3 options that you can pick here.
Yeah.
And it feels like a lot of conversations here. And I'm of course I'm not talking about like, private conversations, like, talking with my wife or something.
Yeah.
Obviously
public spaces.
Yeah, but it's like public spaces dealing with like people who you're not like familiar with.
Yeah, right.
It's like I feel like you have this dialogue wheel of like responses that you can give them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, and when you try to go off script a little bit, they get confused.
Oh God, can you imagine if you walked up to like some sales clerk and you're just like, "O genki desu ka?"
Oh, that would be really weird.
That's weird.
Yeah, that would
right?
be weird.
They'd be looking at you like, what? Why do you care? Like, you know what I mean?
It's funny. I actually had an experience like that, was related to another coffee shop.
Yeah.
So kind of the backstory is I've been looking for, again, some really good coffee in Tokyo online, because I don't want to have to go to a shop every time and buy it directly.
Yeah.
And I found that there's this one place that has pretty good coffee that you can order online. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to order it. So I order it. The next day, I'm in Kuramae.
Yeah.
And I have an event. I'm going to a coffee event that I'm going to.
Yeah.
And everything in my life is about coffee now. And so I'm waiting for the event, but I needed to charge my laptop because I had to do some work. So I just looked up the nearby McDonald's, because they always have like outlets there,
chargers,
Yeah. And the McDonald's was right next to the coffee shop that I bought coffee from online, and I didn't know it existed like before I bought there. So I went in there and I looked around, and I talked to the waitress, not the waitress there, but the person at the counter, just telling her like, hey, I just discovered, this place yesterday. I ordered some stuff online. I didn't even know you guys were here. I just walked by. I had no idea I was going to walk by here. Of course, I'm speaking Japanese. And like for the first half of the discussion, she's like, holy crap, this person's talking to me. Like, this is not what I'm paid to do, but
where's this in the dialogue?
Yeah. but I saw in her eyes that like there was like a click, and there was like a disengagement, and she became like her human self. And then she started talking to me like a normal person. But at the beginning it was like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It was just crazy seeing that shift,
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. It's just interesting. Like on some levels, I think it does make things go by quicker.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of the interactions, it's like it's just one and done. I said my thing.
Yeah.
It's like going into work in the morning. I don't have to individually say good morning to everybody. It's like I walk in the office. Ohayou gozaimasu. Like I said it.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like from that perspective, it's like it's more efficient.
Yeah.
man, it really kind of like sucks the soul out of like daily conversations.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah, so it's funny. So like I talked with my dad about this, and I feel like one of the reasons why a lot of foreigners, when they come to Japan, that they feel lonely
Yeah.
is because of that. Because you're interacting with humans, but there's not really much of like a human touch
Yeah.
to it. It's all just rules. Whereas for someone who's in the system, who knows the system, who just wants to get things done efficiently, that's great. I love it. I'm not looking for friends. I don't need you to talk to me.
Yeah.
There have been many cases in the States where, like, at the cash register or something, the person is having a chat with one of the customers, and there's a line of people behind them.
Yeah.
And like it was okay. Sorry.
I know where you're going with this.
No. This has to do with traffic stuff.
Oh, okay.
There was a time when I was driving down the street, and there was a car in the middle of the street having a conversation with someone on the sidewalk. And I couldn't get past the person because there was like it was a lot of other cars were coming the other way. So I was stuck behind this person for like a minute.
Yeah.
And they were just chatting with someone on the side. I'm like, can you please see someone's behind you and pull over a little bit? Like, you can get in the parking lane.
Yeah.
But no, it's just, hey, how's it going? Which, that's very human, but that's also very inefficient, and it can bother some people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it happens in like the cash register line too a lot,
Yeah. You'll get somebody who's like, especially they'll know. They'll be like, oh yeah,
how's your mother? How's it going? Oh, well, that's Boston.
How's little Stevie?
Yeah. So that was creepy.
Yeah.
So then here's the question then. So, okay. So you have kind of like these two options, right? You can have like the more human side that's less efficient and things don't go as you plan sometimes, or you can have this really sleek, very efficient, everything goes according to plan, but there's no human touch there.
Well, I mean, ideally, I think like it'd be nice to have a little bit of both, right? Okay. Something that I noticed around the office, and I'm not fluent in Japanese, but I know enough Japanese to like kind of understand things. Mm-hmm. And like when I talk, and let me back up a little bit. When I speak to somebody in English, like when I'm talking to another native speaker,
you mean like me?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Right. There's things and phrases I will say that are really casual. Yeah. Like I will say bro.
It was like bro, yeah.
Yeah, hey bro, or hey man. I say like a lot.
Yeah.
That's kind of a negative thing, but it just adds these little quirks into the conversation that like it gives it a little bit of personality. Yeah. And when I hear Japanese being spoken in my office, either to me or two teachers are talking to each other, that just is absent. Yeah, it's very I would say the conversations feel very sterile. Yeah, right. There's a lot of the time people will talk to each other in keigo. Mm-hmm. So it's like super polite. Yeah. And it's like the responses and tone. Yeah. Regardless of who's talking, is the same, which really surprised me and kind of put me off when I first moved here. Yeah. Like you'll see like the tones of conversations kind of like they're very consistent regardless of who's talking. Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, dude, I get that. It was like I told you, I was at an exhibition and I had the chance of working with some Filipinos in the booth, right? And my job was to like stay there, and the manager was out in front talking to all the people coming by the booth, and if he needed me to do something, he would tell me and I'll go do it for him. I was like his little errand boy kind of thing, right? Yeah. And there were also other like Filipinos there too, because it was like two companies in one booth, right? Mm-hmm. And just seeing like the way that they did everything versus the way that like I did things, or the way that like I felt like, oh, I'm in Japan, I have to do this because my boss is Japanese and stuff. Yeah. It was just really different. Like someone was like, hey, do you want to sit down? How can you stand up for so long? I'm so tired. And he's like sitting down in a chair, and he doesn't offer to like get up and let me sit in the chair. But he's just like, hey man, how can you stand up so long? and then like he's like, man, you haven't left the booth at all. I'm like, yeah, my job is to stay here. It's like, yeah, but like can't you leave the booth? I'm like, yeah, but what if he calls me when I'm not there, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, man, that's rough. And they were complaining about the job and stuff. And I'm like, but this is my job. This is what I signed up for.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
Yeah.
big difference in culture.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah. But to be honest, like I've said to you before in the video before this too, like if I love living in Japan, being self-employed.
Yeah.
And if I had to work out of school, even though my pay would be real, like I would probably get better pay at like an English school because of like my background and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just not worth it. I don't want to deal with that stuff every day. It's too like mechanistic, you know?
Yeah. It can feel very claustrophobic.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that as like a
for me?
foreigner? Yeah.
I mean, I try to have fun with it.
What do you mean?
I don't know. Like I just try to. I try to spice things up where I can.
Spice things up? What do you,
like you know, like at my school, I'm kind of known as like a gesture guy.
Yeah.
So like when I have conversations, I'll just kind of like throw in like really wacky gestures and stuff just to kind of like break the ice a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's really how I deal with things, because I think, especially, you know, coming from, you know, a culture like American culture where people are very expressive.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find that outlet over here.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I get that. I remember when I first came to Japan in 2007, I was with my English teacher at the time. I was staying at her house and we were on the train going to Osaka or whatever.
Yeah.
And we were talking in English and I was just like, yeah, you know, so I went to this thing and it was just kind of like, eh. And then like when I talked to other people how they felt about it, they're like, yeah, it's kind of like, meh, you know?
Yeah.
She's like, Arthur, use your words.
Yeah.
And like, don't use these grunts
like,
and sounds.
Like
just
that,
use your
that
words.
kind of thing. And it's like, it's exactly that kind of thing that I have a big problem with here, because I feel like in Japanese, there's a word to describe everything. Right?
Yes.
Every feeling, every situation, there's a word for it. Right?
Yeah.
And it could be something as simple as like, you know, just this like syllables put together like wagamama, peko peko, like that kind of thing, right? But there's still a word associated with it. Whereas like English, there isn't. There's many situations. Like I can't translate what oskare-sama desu means.
Yeah, right.
There's no translation for that in English.
Yeah, but there's a word for it. There's a word for that situation. You use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, because there's not a word for these situations, because there's not something associated with it, there's kind of like a freedom that I have that I can kind of change and express exactly how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
You know? And just like you were saying with like meh, it's like, yeah, those are just sounds, but they have a lot of weight to them.
Yeah.
It's like that kind of thing I have a really hard time expressing in Japanese.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, or like the word man. Oh man, that stinks. You know, that kind of thing. The one thing that I think is kind of interesting is, you know, actually English has the most words out of almost any language in the world because it's such an international language. So the dictionary is larger, actually. But the words that we use day to day is a lot smaller. Like the amount is a lot smaller than in Japanese. You know?
I believe it.
There's so many more words. So like all the time when I'm talking with my students, they're like, how do you say this in English? Like, how do you say otsukare-sama desu? How do you say gochusou-sama desu? How do you say itadakimasu? Like, you don't.
Yeah.
Like what? Like there's no direct translation? No, we just don't say anything in those situations. Like you don't say gochusou-sama after you eat. It's like, we just don't say anything. There's no word for that. You know?
Or you can just kind of freestyle and be like, oh, it was a good meal, or you know, that was great, or you know, or just nothing. It's like I said, you have the creativity to decide how you want to express yourself.
Although one thing though that I found is interesting though in Japanese is there are a lot fewer words to describe your feelings or to say things directly. So like the two words that come to mind are like, how do you say I miss you in Japanese? There's no word for miss. You have to say samishi, which means I'm lonely, right? Or which doesn't mean like I miss you. It just means I'm lonely, therefore I miss you. Or like the word for shut up. There's no word for shut up. You say urusai, which is you're loud.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to tell you directly. You're loud.
Yeah.
So read between the lines. You know what to do, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting how you have that aspect to it too,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah. So I mean, so I feel like for a lot of foreigners when they first come here, that's a real big culture shock about how everything is announced. There's a word for everything, and everything feels kind of robotic. And you can kind of take that two ways, right? So you can either say, man, I just want a little bit of humanity in my life. I want to feel like I'm talking with people.
Yeah.
Or you can go on the side of like, hey, you know, this is just for convenience sake.
Yeah.
Just deal with it. Like when I feel like a lot of people, when they move here, it's hard for them to make friends. They're lonely. So they want that kind of human connection. But then once you get settled, you don't necessarily need that human connection because you have your friends for that, you know?
Yeah.
So it just depends on who you are.
It's true. It's very true.
So was there anything else you wanted to talk about this topic?
I think we pretty much nailed everything I want to talk about.
Yeah. Once again, Akiko, Miho, this was great. Thank you so much. And
very much.
Korekaramo yoroshiku ne. Great. See you, man.